Here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right.
Hello, Fortitude audience. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I have some dear friends with us. Trenton and Missy Bass are sitting here with my amazing husband, Amos.
Hello.
You guys want to say hello?
Hello.
Hey.
About a year ago when we launched Fortitude, one of the first people on the list that I wanted to interview was Trenton, which we did. And we launched the podcast with Trenton being, I think, 1 or 2 or 3. I'm not even sure. I just know that you were right away in the beginning. And so we wanted to have you back because a lot has changed in your life. And then I really wanted to have Missy here because through the past 7 years of us living where we live, being neighbors, it's been a huge blessing. And we've watched this entire journey with you guys. And we want to hear both perspective as mother and as son and just everything that's all happened and hear about your nonprofit. And so thank you again for being here with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
So I think I'd like to start out with you, Trenton. I know that if people want to hear the whole side of Trenton, not the whole side, but going back to the beginning of when the accident happened in the football game, you really went into a lot of detail in the first episode that we interviewed with you. And so instead of going fully into all of that, I think a little bit of an update of where you're at in your life. And then we're going to go back around here with Missy and go to that moment. And so give us a quick update of where you're at in life.
Yeah. So I graduated May of 22 from SDSU, Go Jacks, with mechanical engineering. I had kind of been doing interviews towards the end of my of the last semester there. And a couple weeks after I graduated, I got offered a job at a company called Raven Industries. And so at the end of May of 22, I started with them. So I've been there about a year and a half now.
Okay.
And it's been awesome. I could not have better things to say about a company. I mean, granted, it's my first real job, and so I don't know a ton about what's out there, but I can't imagine companies get much better than this. I mean, they treat their employees awesome. They've been nothing but, good to me. And I think the thing I like about it most is you really couldn't tell who thought the hierarchy. Everyone kind of is on the same level. Obviously, some people have their own office, but no one's afraid to kind of speak their mind to anyone, or there's no looking down to other people. So
cool.
I thought
that's nice.
Yeah, it was very cool. I think it's been going really well.
I love hearing that. When you got the job, because you did intern there.
I did not intern there, no.
You had a different intern.
Yep.
Or you interned in Sioux Falls somewhere?
In Sioux Falls somewhere else, yep.
Okay. So that's a new one for me because I thought you interned there and then got the role. So that's even better.
Yeah, I think it was 3 interviews. And so, I mean, I had never really interviewed for a job either. And I was interviewing for a few other companies too. And so going through the whole interview process and getting weaned down, I didn't think I had a shot, but...
You didn't? Really?
Not really.
So I remember touring the high school, I think it was junior year before the accidents. Maybe it was after. And you had done a 3D model of our little town.
The school.
Of the school.
Yeah.
And it was by far the most intricate thing there. And so I remember thinking, this kid's going to go somewhere. This is amazing. And was it after the accident or before?
That was after, yeah.
Okay, so even with that, it was still amazing.
Yeah, so I had gotten back, and it was kind of, I think, in my transition period between when I got back from rehab and when the second semester was going to start. So I was kind of just hanging around in the computer lab.
Yeah.
And they had just gotten a 3D printer. And so one of the teachers asked me to get something
I'll just
printed.
Bust out this super complicated model of the school and blow everyone away.
And so I asked for some blueprints of the school and then did some did some modeling and got a 3D model.
Did some modeling.
Yeah.
He's being modest. Model modest.
That's exactly what I do now. I'm a designer for them. And so I, working with 3D models on the computer all day. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, so, I mean, like we talk about, you said, I don't think I was going to get the job. But like, I knew you were going to get the job. I saw the model. It was awesome.
Well, I think I saw the number of applicants. I was like, no way. But here we are.
That's nice.
Trenton, we're proud of you. Do you, did you enjoy your college experience?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Especially, I mean, after my injury, it was nice being away, but it was also close enough where if I needed to come home for something, I still could. And so pretty much my whole college career, I came home like every 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes it was a month, but that was really nice for A, laundry, B, food.
I mean, he wanted to get away from me, but he wanted to come back when he needed something.
But no, I mean, I still had a pretty average college kid life. I got out with my friends. I still, went to class and participated in everything. Got to go to sporting events. And so, I mean, obviously it looked different than I had envisioned in my high school days, but ultimately it was pretty much the same.
I was talking to one of the moms in Hills that one of your really good friends with that I think you went to school with. And she was giving me this really neat story about like going through the libraries or going through different places. And now he notices everywhere where it is not up to par. Like you cannot get a wheelchair between these bookshelves. Is this not ADA compliant? Like he like throws a ruckus with certain places now because he's been around you and he sees things differently. And I love that. You probably know what I'm talking about. You can mention him, but I was like, just a different perspective, right? Because his best friend is in a wheelchair now. So he's always thinking of everybody else.
Yeah, it's good to have people like that. I mean, it's good to not be too outspoken about it, but to always keep it in the back of your mind and realize and kind of, like I said, keep it on the back of your mind when you're going places like, oh, this probably isn't right. Or even if you see someone out like, oh, I think I could help them. Just something in the back of your mind. But I'm not an outspoken person at all. So when I see stuff, it usually doesn't even bother me, but rarely will I say something myself.
Yeah. Just kind of roll with it.
Yep.
So that day, the day that your accident happened, if you could just give the brief of that moment. And then Missy, I want to flop it over to what was going on with you and Jeff.
Okay.
So mom and dad, and when Trenton falls. But Trenton, can you give me that beginning of the story at the football game?
Yeah, I guess I can kind of set the scene. So it was the second game of my senior year. We were up in Mountain Lake, a big rival of ours. We knew it was going to be a tough game. It was back and forth all game. We kind of had a younger team. And so getting them used to playing in a real, like, live competitive game. And so, it was kind of tough the whole game, getting the young guys used to stuff. And so it was coming down to the fourth quarter and we were up 28-20 and there was about a minute and a half left and they were kind of driving on us. And I don't know exactly. They were somewhere between the 30 and 40 yard line. And so not a lot of real estate left to go. Mm-hmm. And it's third down and I'm on our sideline playing cornerback and I realize that it's run right away. And so I get around my blocker and I'm kind of running back towards the middle of the field. So he'd be coming from my left to my right and I'm kind of going straight forward. And I kind of have to dive forward or lunge forward a little bit. And he just comes from the left side of my body and just kind of the momentum of him running, like his leg just kind of kneed the side of my head and just kind of snapped my head sideways. It didn't look bad. I mean, I have the videotape of the hit and it doesn't look bad at all. It's a hit that I've made, hundreds, if not 1,000 times before that. And so, that's kind of where it was at.
So you That's interesting because I remember I've heard this story so many different times, and it came from him hitting you with his knee. It wasn't because you blocked with your head down.
Right. Yeah. No, it wasn't dive forward. It wasn't like head to head or like a weird angle or anything like that. It was pretty much just a straight up tackle from the side. And looks super normal on tape. So,
oh man. So you drop to the ground and you have gone into the most beautiful explanation about how you really didn't panic in the moment, but your teammates were like, get up, get up, get up. And in that moment, there was pretty much silence on the football field. Like people, I think that I've watched that portion and it really is like this silence at a football game. And that doesn't happen very often. So Missy, in that moment, as a mom, what was going on?
Yeah, so, excuse me, regular tackle. I'm probably a typical mom that's talking most of the time and maybe sometimes watching the game. But, the play happened and Trenton goes down or somebody goes down on the field. I really didn't know who it was at the time. And so, the more time passes, the quieter it gets because people are waiting for the player to get up. And I always just kind of watch for number 28, the number going off the field to make sure that it's not, your son. And I didn't see number 28 going off the field. So, and that by that time, people were going like, I think it's Trenton, just kind of whispering, I think it's Trenton. And, then your heart kind of just sinks. And it's just, my mind didn't initially go to like the worst or anything like that. But, usually I feel like a mom would probably want to run out onto the field, but I didn't have that at all. I do remember Jeff, who wasn't sitting right next to me, but him and Dalton, who was a coach, but he was standing up in the stands calling plays. They both went down, and people started just, I felt hands starting to just fall on my back, and just all over, like hands were all over me, and people started like holding hands in the crowd and praying. And it was just like crazy how the peace was there. Like I didn't panic at all either. Like Trenton felt the peace, and I'm sure it was because of all the prayers that were taking place, in the field and in the stands. But it's just, and I think that the prayers also kept me from wanting to run down there because I don't think that would have helped any to have a hysterical mom down there.
I would have been mad.
And I know
even though I couldn't have done anything about it, I would not have been happy.
I know
with
my
you.
kid too, so I knew he wouldn't have wanted me down there. So Dalton's an EMT and Jeff's on the fire department and rescue squad too. So I knew that he was in good hands with them going down there. So
and you would have been bawling.
That's true. However, I did not cry at all. It's just crazy how the peace was just there, and I know now that it was everybody praying for peace and just.
So he gets in the ambulance. They get him on the stretcher and in the ambulance, and then I don't know that I've heard if the game ended. Did they finish the game?
Yeah. So because it was such
I was thinking the same thing too. Like, I don't know if this is insensitive.
I know that's what I was
So who won?
because it was, such a close game and such a big, rivalry.
Yeah.
They went on to go, they were the runners up of state that year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
but no, we ended up, like I said, it was third down. So then the next down, I made the tackle. So it was fourth down and we stopped them and then kneeled it out to win the game.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh man. I think now I remember because when you came to at the hospital, they let you know that you won.
Even at the first hospital, just in Wyndham.
Okay.
Yep. So after I got my CT scan done and stuff like that, my brother, who was the coach, was there and said that they won.
Okay. And you're probably like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the tackle. Oh, so when the news came through, and because everyone's praying, you're like, he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. And then that news of Trenton is paralyzed. what in that moment, that's another place I want to go a little bit of where your heart was.
Well, again, I think God protected me because I really didn't know what a C5, C6 break really meant.
Okay.
And then they kept saying that they needed to get him into surgery to decompress the spinal cord. That really never sank into me, but I could see the panic maybe on Jeff's eyes a little bit. He had to leave the hospital building for a while. And, my other two boys kind of hung around and tried to, make sure that we kept calm. And they were by Trenton too. And, just saying the words that we needed to hear. But I guess I really never thought too far in advance, what does this really mean?
I think we were probably in the same boat. I mean, her or I really didn't know, know what to think at all about any of this stuff. I mean, obviously, my dad and my middle brother kind of knew about this stuff just from being in the fire department and stuff like that. My oldest brother is a pharmacist, and so he did all of the anatomy and stuff. And so they kind of understood kind of what this all meant. But I mean, I had no idea.
I do remember Colton saying he came into the hospital and said, what level is it? And I said, I think it's C5, C6. He's like, oh, well, that's good because the higher the break, the worse it is. And I was just kind of
you're like, okay, is that by the rib cage? Oh no.
See, I didn't even know how to see cervical spine. I know that now, but
man. So you're all at the hospital. The one thing that amazed me, I guess, because we were brand new to the community, was the community.
Right.
The community that wrapped their arms around all of you, and the support. It just spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
It was
one good thing about social media was that night. It spread so fast, and just people just all over were praying so fast and
around the world.
Yeah.
It went so far, so fast. And the way people rallied around with your logo, and that logo was going up in every single window, every car, bumper stickers. I'd be in Sioux Falls and would see it, and I'd be like, oh man, Trenton. I always knew Trenton was going to change the world, but he's literally changing the world in a way that we didn't, no one would have planned it or expected it, And so now looking back,
you still see those signs around town.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah. There's so many people. I mean, even in college and to this day, being in public and people recognize me everywhere and they're like, are you Trenton? Yeah.
We were down
What gave it away? The wheelchair?
Yeah, right.
We've been in Arizona.
Pretty recognizable now.
Yeah. We've been in Arizona before and somebody recognized them down there. It's crazy.
It's everywhere I go.
And everything you love is fame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's not me.
Not at all. But that is, look at how God has used you in all of this. And it's been really profound and beautiful to see how Game Plan for Hope has, the lives you're changing with your ministry and your nonprofit is pretty substantial as well. So I'd love, unless there's more that you would like to share.
Well, I'll just say one thing about the community. So you said that, it got out right away. And I just remember, so they ended up letting me ride in the helicopter with Trenton, which is not usually allowed.
Okay.
It's actually the only time a guy can ask, how much do you weigh? Because the pilot said, how much do you weigh? So he ended up letting me go. But I just remember my phone battery was getting really low. And I got a text from one of my friends from Curcio, and just a Christian retreat that we have been involved with for years. But it was just a Bible verse and just praying for you. And it was just a scripture that I needed to hear at that time. And then, my phone pretty much died after that. So it was, I think I shut it off just to save that 1% battery in case I needed to make a phone call. But I guess I would just want to tell anybody that don't ever doubt reaching out to somebody if you hear that it's immediate, because you don't know when a person needs to hear that. And that just kept me calm at that moment.
Have you followed back up with that person?
Oh yeah, I see her all the time.
Yeah, good.
And all of the talks that I give about about this, I always bring that up because, so many times we want to reach out and say something, but then we doubt ourselves and say, oh, well, they're not going to get it anyway, or they're going to have so many people reaching out. But, just do it. It doesn't hurt anything.
No, it doesn't. We talk about the nudge, following through on that nudge.
Right.
Just if someone comes to mind or you hear about something, even if you do not know the person, I really believe you're not stepping into, you're not invasive. No. I don't think it's an invasive thing. I think it's just follow your heart and what the Holy Spirit is leading you to do, and just do it, because you don't know how it might affect or the timing, how the timing might just be.
Because there were hundreds and hundreds of other texts that I didn't get to read because of everything that happened after that. But that one was the one I needed to read at the time. So
that's really great advice. Do you have anything you want to ask?
I have strange questions.
I tend to I keep going, so I like to look at him and say, "What else? Who do you want to ask?"
Maybe the audience is thinking the same thing I am. Like you're laying there and your nose itches, right? I mean, is that a thing? How many
times
discomfort?
So when I was laying on the field, I made the tackle and I was laying face down on the ground, right? And just through the force of the tackle, like my chin strap had slid up over my mouth. Yeah. So my mouth guard was in my mouth. My chin strap was over my mouth. Oh. And I was just like laying there. And so my coaches were asking me questions and this and that.
And you're like,
and I was like super mumbled. And they're like, oh, I can't hear what he says. I can't hear what he says. And then by the time my dad got down to the field, he's like, his chin strap is over his mouth. So he took my chin strap off.
Yeah, because in that moment, you're like, I can't get it. I can't, right? That would have been, that didn't scare you?
No. I had never, everyone asked me, like, were you panicking or could you move or anything like that? I don't know if I could move at that moment, or if I was physically unable to. Okay. But I wasn't like panicking to try to get up. And so I really don't know if I could have moved in that moment because there was just such a calm and a peace about it that I just wasn't, I mean, probably because I didn't know what was going on could be a big part of it. Obviously the prayers and just the peace that God would give me, but no, there was no panic.
Wow.
Amazing. Emotions are high in that moment, or tough. So fast forward, I don't know, say like a couple weeks. What are you both feeling just in those first couple of weeks? Is it a roller coaster?
Well, I just remember going back to the itching of the nose, just because either Jeff or I stayed in the same hospital room as him like all the time. Because there were things like that, like his nose itched and he couldn't itch it. So we would ask if we could do that. I mean, just little things like that I kind of forget about until you mentioned that.
I don't remember that.
When I got an itch, it's got to be itch. So,
but I mean, and that just makes you realize that. I mean, it was kind of a big thing.
A lot to learn really fast and adjust to really fast.
Right. Yeah. And so for me, I think for all of us, it was obviously a roller coaster of emotions. Just obviously the whole unknown of it all. And then, so, being scared about the future for one. And then everything else going on in life, but then also having the high of having your friends in the community being there for you and kind of still having those moments of normalcy. And so, I think it was a huge roller coaster of emotions through the first few weeks for sure.
Yeah. And when he was in the ICU, there were so many people that came up to the hospital, not necessarily just to see him, but just to pray with us, that they had to give us our own waiting room down the hallways. Literally, there was probably...
Prayer team down the hall, take a number.
50
I've seen some pictures.
60 people in the waiting room at one time. And like I said, at the time, he couldn't get that many visitors in the ICU, but they were just there. They were just there to pray.
Wow. Yeah, I think if someone walked through the front door of the hospital, they just automatically ask, "Here for Trenton?"
Yeah, that's neat.
It says so much about your family too. The community is awesome, but it says so much about your family and the way you've raised your kids. your three boys and who they are and their character and how they have shown up as young men in the community, just think about, like, good job, Mom.
Oh,
For real. And you and Jeff, like,
Yeah.
it's really neat to see. You guys both graduated from the same little small town.
Yeah.
So your families and generations have been a part of the community, and therefore it was like, heck yeah, we are going to go and be a family, whether they were related to you or not. It's like everyone, that's why we really love living
I always
there.
said when our kids were growing up around town, our kids are everybody else's kids because they just watched out for our kids.
Watched out for you and was watching out for you, if you know what I mean.
I definitely spent more time away from home growing up than at home.
That's probably
Yeah.
true.
And now people are always at your house, which I love. Like, you always see a lot of cars there because they come to hang out with you,
Yes.
Trenton.
I do the first couple weeks. Missy, are you sleeping? How are you doing emotionally? Just how are you
slept
able
very
to function?
lightly because I was always, kind of like when you have a new baby, you sleep, but with one ear open all the time. Like, I wanted to make sure that if he needed anything, I was there. So
Yeah. So you're probably getting really fatigued over time as
yeah,
the
I know
days
I
goes
didn't
on.
sleep for the first a long time, couple days, to the point where I got so tired that I finally couldn't function.
Yeah.
And I was so emotional. Remember my son Dalton, I would be just crying reading through these texts that I was trying to catch up on and respond to. And he's like, why don't you just stop reading those and go lay down? So I did. And I did sleep for a couple hours. And this was, after, I was probably up for at least 48 hours because I had woken up at 4 the morning of the accident to go train.
Yeah.
And then that happened. And then his surgery wasn't until, 1 o'clock in the morning. And then we didn't sleep all night.
You said to go train, as in go
Like I was
do your
doing personal
exercise.
training. No, I was doing personal training. So
At
I had to be
4
at the
a.m.
gym by 5.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it was a long day.
Yeah, I'll
2
say-
days, I should say.
I'll say it. How was Jeff doing?
He was strong, but I could tell he was worried. There was a definite worry. Like I said, he knew more just because he, he's just educated in the medical field a little bit more than I am. So
Sure.
Yeah.
What was it? What is the
we paced a lot in the hospital while he was in surgery, for sure.
yeah, for a dad, a husband who's going through this? What did Jeff do that really made a difference to both of you?
Well, I remember him, we were getting around Trenton's bed and surrounding and just praying. And I remember Trenton even praying after Jeff got done. And something that we probably didn't do a whole lot before that as a family is pray. But we all got around his bed and put our hands on him and prayed. And I just remember Trenton even praying. And of course, he was praying for everybody else instead of himself. But that's one thing that stuck out. Plus, Jeff was very instrumental in taking care of all the stuff with the insurance because
That's what I was going to say. That was what I guess I noticed the most in the hospitals is, he always seemed like he knew what he was doing, taking care of the insurance and talking with the staff and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
That sounds like a really good division of responsibilities. He stepped up as the spiritual leader. He stepped up as the admin leader, doing the administrative work, and let you focus on just being mom and being caretaker.
Yeah.
And you guys played your
taking care
strength.
of the stuff that no one wants to take care of, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's kind of the stuff that it seems like
Yep.
he knew how to do. And yeah,
And even if he didn't, he probably just figured it out.
exactly.
I think it was good for him too because it kept him busy.
Yeah.
And kept his mind off of, reality
Yeah, right.
and where your mind wants to go, to the worst and to the future. And,
And
that's scary.
And through this process, Jeff is doing the stuff that needs to get done. But yet, again, there's 4 months out. There's 5, 6. There's a year. What are we going to need to help Trenton be successful in his new life, right? And you guys. And so Craig Institute was where you decided, or like you guys did all the research on tons of different places that you could have brought Trenton. And how did you guys land on Craig?
Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to? We basically were told about the couple different ones just from people reaching out to us through social media. Hey, you got to check out Craig Hospital because our, son or daughter was there, and it's, world known. And so we heard of Craig that way. And then Madonna down in Lincoln was brought up too. So basically they flew reps in for us to interview with. So Trenton and us as a family got to talk to them and ask questions. And it basically came down to, Craig was 12 hours away, and, Lincoln was a lot closer, but they had a teen program called Teen Rehab at Craig. And that was kind of big. And if he would have gone to Lincoln, he would have been put in the peds unit, and there was only like one other young child there. So
just
we
more efficient.
It was going to be hard. I mean, I can let Trent talk about that, but I know it was a difficult decision because he didn't want to be that far away from his friends.
Yeah.
Because friends were big at that point. Like seeing them every day was a huge thing for him.
Right. And I can think back to that moment, and I'm not sure if I'm biased in my thoughts now because I know, or just because of the situation.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, back then that I didn't want to be in the peds unit. And so that was kind of the biggest thing for me. It was like I didn't feel like someone who needed to be in a peds unit.
Right.
And so that kind of was a turnoff for Madonna. At that point, I didn't realize how good Craig Hospital was. But yeah, I mean, a world-renowned hospital for spinal cord and brain injury rehab. And so ultimately, it was definitely the correct choice. And while I was out there, there were probably 8 to 14 kids somewhat around my age. And so that was just a huge part of the rehabilitation process.
Right.
Do you still keep in contact with any of them?
Not, I mean, I don't really text them. I keep up with them via social media every once in a while.
So we're still on a Facebook group page for the track families.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm probably more in touch with the parents than what he is with the kids, but yeah, we definitely stay in touch.
Explain what track kids.
Teen Rehab at Craig.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Track. Okay. And while you were there, you did have a lot of visitors. Like your friends still did travel out to come and visit you periodically because you're out there for how long?
I was out there the first time for 3 months.
3 months. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was one of my worries about going out there was the whole time I was at Avera in Sioux Falls. I constantly had visitors, right? And that was one of the biggest parts of my rehab or the rehabilitation and mental side of staying positive. The whole thing is other people kind of worrying about it for me.
Yeah.
And so, just the positivity that they gave me and all that stuff, I was worried about losing that. But then going out to Craig, which is in Denver, I was pretty much never alone out there either. I mean, obviously my mom and dad were there, but we had visitors, it seemed like almost every week.
Right.
Did you say people worrying about you helped you? Like took it away from you? Did I catch that right?
Yeah, I would say kind of everyone else praying for me and worrying about it. I mean, just subconsciously maybe taking the pressure.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
How long until you had your first moments alone?
I think when I woke up from surgery or maybe that next night.
I think it was the next night because I remember that was when I finally got some sleep.
Yeah.
I was sitting in the ER room in the ICU room with him, and I could not sleep on the floor. And they didn't have anything else in the ICU room because it was so small. So I think I told him that I was going to just go lay down for a little bit. And I got a call.
It was at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So, I mean, waking up from surgery at like 6 a.m. and then that whole day, obviously talking to people all day in the ICU. And then that night, I think it was, I had fallen asleep and then woken up kind of in the middle of the night. But in the ICU, like you really can't tell the time of day or anything. Obviously, I was in a really confused state to begin with. I woke up like alone and like in a dark room, and I just remember kind of like freaking out a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I
remember him telling me, "Where were you?"
You're like,
and don't do that again.
Yeah. I had no idea it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, but yeah, it was super scary, like waking up in that room alone, and
you couldn't move.
No, right, not being able to like.
And you're 17. Well, you're 17.
I was 17. Yeah.
So that's normal. I could totally see that's a normal reaction. So just for families who may have to go through that surgery, what's that? I mean, you've got to get sleep, right? Mom's got to get sleep. Dad's got to get sleep. You need someone there. How do you work that out?
We basically started taking shifts then. Like Jeff would stay in there with him for a while, and we had other people in there too, siblings and his siblings and stuff. So
and knowing more about hospitals now, like if I had been feeling that way and I didn't have family around, I mean, the nurses aren't doing anything at 4 a.m. either, right? But they're there, and so I could have asked a nurse to spend time with me or ask them to talk or anything like that. And I'm sure they would love to do that because they're, like I said, at 4 a.m. they're not doing anything anyways.
That's great advice. Yeah, because that's what the nurses are there for. And those are the moments that I have a lot of nurse friends who have said those are golden nugget moments for them personally when they get to speak into the lives and not just hitting monitors and giving shots and doing what they do to actually speak in the life of those in the hospital.
And I always think of, obviously I was blessed with a family that was always there for me in a massive community and following. But a lot of the families that we help through Game Plan for Hope don't have that. And there's a lot of people who are going through this, maybe not alone, but they're in the hospital alone for a majority of their stay. And I think back to my time there, and I can't imagine how difficult it would be for them in that moment.
Right.
I mean, obviously knowing what I know now, it wouldn't be as bad, but putting myself back in that position is like, that's got to be so difficult.
Right. So you go and visit those who are in the hospital now, right, Trenton?
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess that's a pretty good transition.
Yeah, that is. I was just thinking that's a good transition for us to talk about Game Plan for Hope.
So I mean, now if there's an injury that is somewhat like a spinal cord injury, I'll go up and talk to them through Game Plan for Hope, kind of just telling them about, my story to begin with. But then I try to give them advice about things that I would want to know when I was back in their position, or if it's an injury that's really similar to mine, kind of tips and tricks that I've learned over the years to kind of get through life. But then obviously giving them hope for the future, right? Being 6 years out now, obviously my life looks way different than it did when I was in their shoes. And so, kind of giving them hope that, life goes on. And
I think you always stress how your faith got you through it, which is kind of key.
Very key.
Especially if, we don't always know if who we're going to visit is a believer or not. So it's just a nice way to be able to share our faith.
So you get, how does Game Plan for Hope work?
Well, we usually get referrals from Trenton's Facebook page that still has a lot of followers, or people that has followed his story will reach out to us and say, hey, here's a link to somebody maybe would be good for you to reach out to.
Okay.
So we do, that's a lot of it. We are trying to get plugged into the hospitals here in town to get referrals from them, or at least to have them give the patients our contact information because of HIPAA. They can't really tell us people, but if they get referred from somebody else, it's usually like a Caring Bridge share or something like that. So then what I do is I usually try to reach out via messenger and just say, hey, here's who I am, and just kind of briefly share a story and just say, we're here to help in any way, and we want to walk alongside you in this journey. Sometimes we get a response back, sometimes we don't. So that's kind of how it works right now.
It may be obvious to some people why you would start Game Plan for Hope, but can you explain what kick-started Game Plan for Hope?
I think it started, honestly, in Avera, like when I was first in the hospital, through social media. I mean, there were so many people who asked how they could help us. And so obviously there was a lot of monetary donations, but then there was people who had equipment to share with us. And so not knowing what I would need down the road, we just started saying yes to everything. And so my dad was driving all over the place, getting all of this equipment, and that kind of kept continuing while I was at Craig. And so it was months and months of this stuff.
And equipment like wheelchairs,
a
van.
like bathroom equipment, like tables, anything.
Stuff really. You would never realize that you were going to need in life ever. Right. And you can't plan for stuff like that. So people who've been there, done that are like, here, you're going to need this. Yeah. And you're like, really?
I do remembering at the time going, being kind of in that denial phase going, well, we're not going to need that because he's going to get better. I mean, I do remember that phase a little bit.
And then I ended up not needing 95% of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not because, I ended up walking, but just because a lot of it is very specific to, an injury or a use case. And so I ended up just not needing a lot of it. And so then we were kind of in the mentality of like, what do we do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And so it just kind of led to a pay it forward thing. And so that's what I think kind of sparked the whole Game Plan for Hope thing was there's a huge need for this. Like I said, a lot of the families that we see, even like when I was in Craig, don't have that support system, right?
Yeah.
And so they come from either a big city where they don't get a lot of support from the community. And so they might not have a lot of money to buy all this stuff, whatever it may be, people just.
And insurance is all different too. Yeah. Like some insurances pay for a lot more than other insurances. So it kind of all depends on that too. But I also remember the equipment part of it. But then when we were at Craig Hospital, I remember getting a call from a friend saying, hey, there was a 14-year-old boy that just got in a car accident and he's paralyzed and they're trying to, figure out what to do. And would you talk to this mom? And we're like a month into this. And so I remember already just reaching out to this mom who was back at Avera, going right where we were a month before.
Oh, man.
Going, what do we do? Where do we go? And she doesn't remember this conversation, just because you're in such a blur and I don't remember conversations either right away. But yeah, they ended up coming out there. And the funny thing about that story is all the football teams in the area had, signed signs and sent them to Trenton. Well, this young boy and his brother had signed, their football team had signed, and their names were right in the middle. And then a month later, he was out at Craig.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, the support side of things started out at Craig too already. So it's just kind of, I think,
kind of just seeing a need for all of this stuff that was happening to us. And then just like I said, realization that there was a need for something like this because you go through this whole scene in the hospital and like this tragedy and you just there's no one to point you in the right direction. Right. Mm-hmm. Through all of it, insurance to equipment and all of that stuff. Emotional.
The emotional side of things.
And just to tell them that it'll be okay and just to take things one day at a time and not to look too far in the future. Because if you start looking, and you say that's a lot, Trenton, you start looking too far in the future, and you can easily start panicking.
Yeah.
You know, what's my future going to look like? Am I going to be able to do this or that? Or, you know, from a parent side of things, it's like, what does this look like?
Oh,
you
man.
know, like
Yeah.
as a mom, is he going to be able to, you know, go to college? Is he going to be able to do this? And,
Yeah.
you know, worry is, you know,
Worry and fear are the root.
it can take over
Yeah.
really fast. So you really have to fight that.
So game plan for the number 4hope.org is the website, and you're in Southwest Minnesota. What kind of coverage do you have? Are you in all continental states or?
Yeah, we really don't have any, you know, strict
Limitations.
guidelines. I mean, we still have a lot of connections out at Craig Hospital, so, you know, we'll get reached out to once in a while. But I would say for the majority, it's probably the four states, you know, right around us.
Yeah.
But I think I saw a stat that you guys have helped families in, 7 or 9 states or something like that?
9
And so,
states, I think.
I mean, for a majority of it, it's kind of within probably 200 miles.
Right.
But it does venture out.
Yeah, sure. And how do you know any stats on how often this type of an injury occurs?
You know, I don't know stats anymore. I think
I had just looked, and last year, so 2022, I think they helped over 60 families in like over 50 communities. So
Are you talking about just the percentage of this happening to a person?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just-
the
just
stats
your
of
injury
of
in-
somebody getting
no,
paralyzed.
I have no idea.
Is it one a day? I mean, is it just like the car accident, football, could be other things, could be diving into a shallow pool.
Right. Right.
I'm getting the sense that it happens more often than we hear about.
It's kind of like when you buy a car that you think is unique, and then all of a sudden you start seeing it all over.
Everywhere.
That's how it is. I feel like you just start hearing about it more and more.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a community that you've
Right.
like never noticed before, never tapped into.
Right.
And so, you know, you're not in the hospital scene. And so it's just not something you notice. But being part of it, yeah, it's definitely more common than you think.
Wow. Our conversations when you're like, this just happened and I just got a call for this and then this and a diving accident out in Bogie, or, you know, a lot of people will live in fear of that happening to their children. When they hear of stuff like this, they'll be like, oh, please not my child, you know, or it's like you can spiral yourself into a frenzy as a mom or a dad
Right.
with the worry.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give those parents?
Surrender.
Yep.
I mean, one word. I mean, and I just remember when he went off to college, it was probably exciting for him, but I was freaked out because I had been caring for him since he got home from the hospital. And, you know, a mom knows best, right? You know, like I knew how to take care of him. Is anybody else going to know how to take care of him? And just, you know, college is new and probably not scary, I shouldn't say, especially for a boy. I mean, they're excited to go, but I just worried about him, and I found out really quickly that worry could be a downward spiral. So I had to just get on my knees and surrender daily, just for God to take away the fear and the worry, and he did. I mean, when Trenton would be home, I'd, you know, take over the role of caregiver, but when he was gone, I was able to just let go and trust that the people that we had lined up to take care of him had it.
Trenton, what's it like for you? I see you at the football games. When you're watching a football game, is that easy, hard? Do you have moments? What is that like?
I have absolutely no issue watching football again.
Yeah.
And it's been like that since day one. I have never blamed football for this. You know, to me, it's not, you know, a football accident, right? I guess I've said this a lot before, but I've accepted with my faith and hope that, you know, that this is God's plan for me. And if I could go back in time and, you know, maybe not go out for football, or if a parent's asking me like, is football safe? You know, should I have my kid play football? Absolutely. You know, this isn't a football thing. If I could go back in time and not play football, I think I would be in the same situation. Maybe it would happen in a car accident, or if I was diving in a pool. I couldn't tell you how it was going to happen to me, but I think God had a plan for me, and you're not going to get away from that. And so it's better to just accept that plan. And that's been, a long journey too, of accepting that plan and carrying it out.
Yeah. Wow.
He talks more mature than most adults.
Yeah, he does.
But I think that's just, God's peace, or, just his hands over Trenton and the whole journey is, if he's got a plan for Trenton, then he's going to be able to get him through this with peace and acceptance. And, he's going to use him. I mean, obviously Trenton has a choice, but he's going to use him as a tool to help others who don't maybe have that hope. So it's just been such a blessing to see, because I know that if Trenton wouldn't be handling it as well as he is, that us as parents would probably not be either.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier when your child is, as strong in their faith as he is. Because we do work with a lot of parents whose children are struggling, and it's really hard. But I just keep telling them, you just need to keep praying and, doing what you can to, have hope and take it one day at a time, because it's a battle.
Wow. You two are so inspiring. You really are. Your whole family and everybody, it's been really a beautiful thing to watch and to hear the things that you say, Trenton, is very powerful for anyone who's ever going through anything, not even just a tragic accident, like going through anything. Your faith, you just said, this is God's plan. I can't run from God's plan. And I am where I am because this is what he's called for me. And
right. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy either, right? It's still a daily choice for me to choose to live out his plan, obviously. I wouldn't choose this plan, obviously. And I think a lot of people think that just because it's his plan for you, like you have to willingly be happy about that every day. And that's absolutely not true. Like, it's a struggle every day, but choosing to be happy and choosing to have a positive outlook is probably the biggest thing you can do. But yeah, like I said, it is difficult. I mean, are there times that I would rather not be up in front of a crowd giving a talk about my life? Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not a talkative person. I've always hated giving speeches. But it's just how it works.
Spreading hope.
I think it's
joy.
just being obedient to what we know is his plan for us. And that's not always easy. Getting uncomfortable and like, this isn't easy for me either. My heart's beating.
You're speaking my language. Oh, yeah.
But, I think just knowing that you need to get outside of your comfort zone and be obedient is a step of faith.
I would say
lives.
The thing kind of going off of what I was saying is, even for me now, like, it's so easy to look back to that accident and just think about, where would I be now if that never happened? How much better would my life be if that never happened to me? And I think everyone does that, right? We have those moments in our life like, gosh, how can that be a God thing? Like, it was so terrible. Like, such a tragic thing happens in our lives. Like, we lose loved ones, and we're so blinded by a reality that isn't real, right? We think back into these lives that aren't real, right? They're a lie. I mean, we're comparing a reality to something that isn't God's plan for us, right? We have all of these forks in the road of our lives, and all these decisions we make that we kind of think are the wrong decisions or these bad things that happen to us. But the ultimate plan is just a perfect accumulation of all of those decisions that we make in life and all of those trials in our lives that God puts in our life, right? And those aren't easy things that happen to us, but it's all for a purpose and a plan. And so it's accepting that plan and acting on it. And that's kind of still where I struggle every day. like I said, it's not fun for me to get up and give talks, and I would never be doing a podcast if this didn't happen to me. And so it is still a daily choice to follow his plan. Not always easy, not always the thing I want to do, but I feel him calling me to do this. And so it's an active choice to make that choice, to make that.
That's great. Good for you. Oh. Don't fight it. You need the way, I mean, the feeling of being used by the creator of the universe.
I know that
how amazing is that?
I've just knowing him, and then some others who are in Trenton's situation, who have gone on to be motivational speakers and so forth. I don't know if I've actually heard you say this, but I think you have. Basically, I mean, so many words that kind of feel blessed that this has happened to you, because you don't know where you would be if it didn't. Like, you know that you're being used by God because you're in this situation, whereas if he wasn't in this situation, he might be partying like a rock star and not using his life for good, you know. So I don't know. I've just heard a lot of people, you know, say that, and I think that's just
blessing in disguise.
Yeah, you never know what he's saving you
From.
or someone else from,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
So
Yep.
while this might seem bad, whatever he saved me from was obviously worse. But then going along kind of what you were saying about almost seeing this as a blessing, that obviously just comes with religious and emotional maturity, right? Seeing past your life on earth and seeing his greater plan into heaven, right? That's where my hope comes from. Everyone asks me, you know, do you think you're going to walk again? Well, I know I'm going to walk again, whether that's on the earth or in heaven. And so looking past, you know, life on earth and kind of just serving whatever plan that he has for me. And that didn't come to me right away. You know, that's been within the last, you know, kind of year and a half post graduation of college and becoming a little more mature.
Yeah, I can honestly say I've seen him mature so much in his faith. And I mean, that goes for me as a parent too, and an adult. I mean, he's way more mature in his faith than I was at that age. And sometimes I even think now, like, I'm learning from my child how much you need to lean on the Lord. But yeah.
Our time here on earth, I love how you just put that into perspective, because our time here on earth is so minute. You know, we talk about and how eternity is going to be so beautiful. And I'm real pumped to see that adorable swagger back up in heaven, Trenton, because I remember saying that to you. Probably.
He did have the little bass swagger.
Oh, man.
He had the same one as brothers.
Yep. It's pretty dang. It's cute. Well, this has been great. Thank you for sharing all the information that you did with our audience. I know that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to do things differently now. And that's what we're here to do with Fortitude, is to truly serve the audience and everyone who's listening, to give information that they may not otherwise ever hear. So what's one last piece of advice? I know you said prayer, community.
Yeah, just like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to people, even if, just follow that nudge. People and what they say and do can make such a huge difference. One thing I didn't mention, but we had a bunch of families who went together, and so that Jeff and I could both be out at Craig for 3 months, they paid for all of our bills while we were gone.
Wow.
That was an accumulation of a lot of families that did that. But it's like, it doesn't have to always be a financial burden. It can be like a text just always follow the nudge. Don't let the hesitation is from Satan. The nudge is from God. So always.
And if you pray about it, I've always said, if I know there's something there,
right,
I'm supposed to do something, but I don't know what. When you pray about it, the Holy Spirit will give it to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.